Welcome to the story Behind the Glory by On3. And today we have the pleasure of chatting with Rodney Hill, the Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach at the University of Arkansas. Hey, Rodney, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Clay. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Where are you today?
I am in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We are off today, so got a workout in this morning. Came home. Now I'm, sitting at home. I'm actually at the kitchen table, as you can see the blinds behind me. So just excited to be on here with you.
Fantastic. Well, at On3, we discuss really three things: people's passions, their perseverances, and how they pursue excellence in their life. So let's kick it off. What are you really enjoying at this moment in life?
Well, just enjoying life in general, right? I enjoy where I'm at. I enjoy my wife. I enjoy my family. I'm enjoying my current state in my career, where I'm at, who I'm working with, who I'm working for, the people around the building. I'd say I've got a pretty joyful life right now. It's a very a general statement. I try not to give a general answer, but to be honest, life is good right now. I have no complaints. So, just enjoying everything.
Awesome. And tell me more about the building and the program that you're with, and what's making it so special for you.
Sure. I think the number one thing is that everybody is on the same page, and not to use the tired boat analogy, but everybody's rowing in the same direction right now. Um, it's good to be in a building where everybody understands what the mission is, what the goal is, and everybody is on the same page and trying to get there. Everybody understands what the head coach wants to do, and everybody is on board. Nobody's trying to do their own thing. Everybody wants the same goal, and everybody's trying to do the same thing the same way. So that's been pretty special, and just everybody being willing to build relationships with everybody in the building, no matter what somebody's title is. Everybody's been, extremely friendly, and I'm thankful to be here to be with, not only the people on the strength staff, but the coaches and everybody else and support staff, the janitors. Everybody's been awesome.
What were some of the first impressions of the head coach and the culture that he created at Arkansas?
Sure. Coach Pittman's an awesome guy. He's really down to earth. He keeps the main thing the main thing. He doesn't try to work harder just for the sake of working harder. He understands that people have lives and families just as he does, so we're gonna do what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, like I said, you keep the main thing the main thing. And if it's something that can be done tomorrow, we're gonna do it tomorrow. If it's something that needs to be done now, we'll have it done now. That doesn't mean that we don't work hard or we aren't in the building late or anything like that. But, the culture that he has, laid out for not only the players, but for all of the employees within the program has been phenomenal. And he's done a good job of letting everybody know the expectations. He's a clear and concise communicator. And like I said, he's extremely relatable. And I think that is, it's really hard to come by with some head coaches, but, he's done a great job of that.
What would you say are some of the foundational blocks for the culture that he's built and that you're carrying through in your weight room?
Sure. Number one is be accountable. Do what you say you're going to do. Live up to the expectations that have been set out for you. Make sure that you're where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. And if aren't doing what you're supposed to do, then there will be consequences and ramifications for that. And, you just have to be an adult and handle those and continue to keep it moving, I think. So, the accountability part, working hard, making sure that everybody shows up and, while you're in the building and it's your time to work, whether it's a player or a coach or player development or video, you're going to work. You're going to work really, really hard. And you have been brought here to be the best. You are the best, but there's more that you're able to tap into in order to reach your potential. And it's our job as the employees of this building to help these athletes make sure that they reach that potential. And sometimes they're not gonna like us for it, but we're doing what we think is best for you, whether you see it or not. But hopefully down the line, you'll be able to figure out that what we are trying to do was really trying to help you, and you'll be thankful and appreciative for it. So I'd say those are the two big things, are the accountability and the effort and the work ethic that needs to be on display all the time.
Can you recount a situation, a specific situation, where one of the players didn't necessarily understand why he was being asked to do what he did, and what was that situation, and how was it handled?
I mean, I'm sure everybody who works in any sort of athletics out there, especially in the team setting, in collegiate athletics, has had a time where, somebody was like, man, why are we doing this? And that's just the day and age, and that's the generation, and that's the kid that we have today. They want to know why, and they're not necessarily being smart Alex about it. You just they want to know why they're doing what they're doing. Gone are the days of do this because I said so. So I think that clear communication, being able to explain things conceptually, take the big picture, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and then zoom in a little bit from that 30,000-foot view and explain why this is going to help you do that, is the main thing that you need to be able to do as a coach and as a leader. And when you have people, for lack of better terms, underneath you, people that you're working with and people that are working for you, you've got to be able to conceptually explain what the goal is, and then explain as you go why and how the things that are being asked of you are going to help you achieve your individual goals, but most importantly, this team achieve the team goals.
And I want to go back to your comment you made about accountability. Do you see, or maybe you can share with us more about how you see not only the staff holding each other accountable, but how the players are holding themselves accountable? Well, what does that look like, inside your program?
Absolutely. That's part of the culture, right? Like we talked about, that accountability. It all starts with the head coach, and then it trickles down to the position coaches and our head strength coach, and the leaders of their departments. Everybody who's a leader in their department, they have to hold their employees accountable. And it's kind of like competition breeds excellence, right? When it comes from the employees, you don't want to be the department that is lacking or that everybody thinks isn't pulling their own weight. So you're going to do the best that you can do in order to be the department that looks the best, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think that you want that, because that's going to then drive the building to be the best that it can be. If everybody in the building is working as hard as they can and doing what they need to do, the head coach has a high expectation, to not to trail too far off from your question. The head coach has a high expectation, and he's going to make sure that, the leaders of the departments understand that. And then it's up to the leaders of those departments to communicate to their subordinates that these expectations must be met, and that's the sign of a good leader, being able to communicate to your subordinates in a way in which they understand, because not everybody understands everything the same way, right? Everybody's got a different learning style. So not only your employees, but back to the coaches. And to answer your question about the players, it's coming along, and I'd say it's coming along pretty well. We're just trying to, continue to find those leaders and find more guys that want to step up and be the person who's going to hold everybody accountable. And the thing with that is, it's hard because these are your friends, and sometimes it's hard to hold your friends accountable. And get in somebody's face when something isn't going right and making sure that they do what is being asked of them and they're doing it the way that it's being asked. They're not doing their own thing. We all want to be on one accord. We all want to be like-minded individuals of similar attainments and ideals. And in order to get to that point, it's going to take the players leading that charge, because just as it's not the coach-led teams that win championships and have great success. It is the player-led teams that do that. So we're just in the middle of, trying to continue to figure out who else wants to step up. Guys have been doing a great job, and they've been growing in that aspect. But the more leaders you can have that lead by example, but are also willing to hold people accountable, like we talked about before, the better off you're going to be.
There may be the connotation, right, that players holding each other accountable, maybe negative or what have you. But share with us how your players positively hold each other accountable. Like, what are some examples that you've seen in ways that players, aren't like picking on each other, but it's more done in a positive light, right?
Absolutely. And that comes back to communication, clear and effective communication, and understanding your audience, right? You have to look at somebody and be like, hey, man, I know you're better than that. You can do better than that. I've seen you do better than that. And we get a lot of that. And that honestly starts with our head strength coach, Coach Souders. He creates an awesome, positive environment. We're not in there just screaming at kids and yelling at them and in their faces just for the sake of doing it. We're trying to show them that you can use that positive leadership or positive communication to build somebody up as opposed to breaking them down. And you're starting to see the players do that. We've had guys during conditioning not finish through a line, and then somebody walk up to them and say, hey, I need more than that. That's not the expectation. That's not going to help us get to where we want to be. You can do better than that. You can be better than that. I believe in you. And I think that is the biggest point, is letting somebody understand that, I'm not doing this to belittle you. I'm doing this because I believe in you and I know what you can be. But in order to get where you want to go, you have to make yourself uncomfortable, and you have to do those uncomfortable things, because there is no growth in complacency.
Are there any non-negotiables for you when you're trying to create the culture and lead?
Sure. I think number one is effort. The first non-negotiable that you're looking at is effort. If you're not gonna give me everything you got every single day, then there's no point in being here, because in order to win those championships and get all those accolades from a team and an individual perspective, you're going to have to go through some adversity during the season. But when that adversity strikes in the season, you don't want that to be the first time that you have gone through some sort of adversity. You want to condition your mind, and your body to be able to fight through that adversity during the off season. Off season is obviously made to get better and enhance physical and mental capabilities, but it's also to, put your team through some of those adverse situations, so that way they are able to persevere through those situations once you get into the season when it really, really counts. So the biggest thing for me, I would say, is effort and attitude, the things that you can control, right? Showing up on time. And, this is very cliche, but those are the non-negotiables: your attitude, your effort, showing up on time, the things that you can control. Those are the non-negotiables. Everything else we can work through. But if you can control it, then you got to understand that at a certain point, this is a job, and you have to show up and do your job like a professional on a daily basis. So I'd say those are the non-negotiables for me.
And when you look back at your coaching career, how would you say that your style has evolved, from the early days to now?
That's a great question, honestly. I'd say not every coach is a teacher. right? Not every coach is going to be able to communicate differently with every athlete based on their learning styles and based on, the way that that athlete receives information. There are some athletes you can be harder on, some athletes that you can't. So being able to decipher that, right? And also having worked in college when I was young, being around a lot of high energy people, you think that that's the only way to get it done, and rah rah, yelling and screaming, and then just matriculating through my career. I ended up in the NFL at one point, and it's not happening up there. You're not yelling and rah rah and screaming at those guys. They work with you. You have to be able to calmly and effectively communicate with those guys. And I'd say going to the NFL is what changed my coaching style the most, because you have to be able to show these guys what they're doing wrong and how they can fix it. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to you because they feel like they don't have to listen to you. So being able to get those guys results, and the only way you're going to get those guys results is to use your mind and effectively communicate what you're looking at from, a biomechanical standpoint. So I'd say that that is how my career or my coaching has evolved throughout my career. One, I've calmed down a lot since when I was younger, and part of that is maybe just as you get older, your energy levels start to dip a little bit, but also becoming a more clear and concise and effective communicator. I pride myself on not just being a coach, but being a teacher and being able to explain things, take complex concepts and make them simple enough that a lot of these athletes who have never sat in an exercise science class before can understand. We read all these big words in textbooks, but but regurgitating those to an athlete, he's going to look at you or she's going to look at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So how can you take those concepts, break them down, make them more simple so that way they can understand? And not every athlete has the same learning style. So you can't just have a cookie cutter style with every athlete and, say the same thing to every athlete because they're not all going to comprehend it the exact same. So finding ways to effectively communicate.
Tell me more about your time in the NFL. How did that come about? Let's go back to the beginning. Yeah, I guess. How did you get your break there, and how'd that all transpire?
Sure. So big mentor of mine, Coach Craig Fitzgerald. He's the head strength and conditioning coach at the New York Giants right now. Shout out Coach Fitz. I've had a lot of opportunities that have come about that are because of him, and I wouldn't be where I am without him. So shout out to Coach Fitz first and foremost. He is the person. He was the head strength coach at the Houston Texans at the time. He helped me get an internship. I was the head strength coach at Howard University, the director of strength and conditioning. He made a call to the head strength coach at the time at the New York Giants and got me an interview, and I was able to intern there for a season. And you had to hit the ground running. There was a whole lot that I didn't even know. There was stuff out there that we were doing from a training standpoint that I didn't even know existed. I think I was 25 at the time I got there, so I had to grow up quick. I had to learn a lot really quick, and I had a boss there who was very demanding and wanted things done a certain way. So having to learn his coaching style and the way that he wanted things was a hard adjustment, but I made the adjustment, and I'd say it helped me grow a lot. The NFL is a very, very there's only 32 organizations as opposed to the hundreds of college programs out there, Division One, FCS, Division Two, Division Three, NAIA, junior college. So your pool is much, much smaller. So it's a lot more difficult to get in at that level. But just doing that, building relationships, I left there, went to UCF, University of Central Florida, for a year in 2018, maybe 13, 14 months. Then got a call from the Detroit Lions to be a full-time assistant strength and conditioning coach there. That was again, full-time NFL job. Just learning how to effectively communicate, like I said, with those guys there, with general managers, with head coaches, with position coaches, with my boss. Again, things are done at a things are done at a very, very high level there, and you're brought in to be the best at what you do. So you better figure. I mean, you're brought in to be the best at what you do everywhere, but at that level, with the resources that you have, and owners' willingness to spend, you better be able to justify that, and you better be able to use these resources to help explain how it's going to get the athletes better. And when it's getting the athletes better, you better be able to explain to the coaches how that's happening, and to ownership and the general manager how that's happening. So just learning how to effectively communicate not only with the athletes but with the higher level administrators, if you will, in those buildings.
Well, walk me through what you were thinking when you got your break with the Giants. Was that what was going through your head at the time? I mean, when you got that position?
Sure. That was it felt good. It felt good to be able to that somebody liked me enough that they wanted to have me in the NFL. I figured, I'm gonna have to learn how to train at that level, and how to deal with, again, different athletes, and the upper level management and stuff like that. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of dealing with the upper level management as an intern. So, but still, just trying to figure out what my boss wants and how to do the things that he wants the way he wants it. That was my biggest thing, was, all right, let me do some more research on my boss, see what he likes, see what he doesn't, see what his training philosophy is. So I have at least a little bit of an idea when I go in there. So that way, I'm not just trying to stay afloat. I can actually swim a little bit and keep up. And even then, there was still a lot more to everything that he was doing and what he wanted than I could have even imagined. But again, it helped me grow up really, really fast, and it was a real good introduction into training at the higher level with whatever resources you want and need.
Share with me one of those moments where you fell flat on your face, and there was a level of expectation that was clearly higher than what you were delivering. What was that moment, and how was it resolved?
Absolutely. I think you could start with the Giants. Just, we had a lot of setup going on, and different positions were doing different things. And at any point in time in the NFL, if you are trying to individualize programs for guys, you obviously want to keep your skeleton the same, but then you branch off a little bit for different guys. You could have 14, 15, 16 different programs running at once with 60 guys on the team. So and I handled all the setup and cleanup by myself. So just trying to go through everybody's cards and make sure that everybody's cards, I had everything everybody needed, right? There were a few times, until I got my system down, where I would miss a thing here or there. And it was, my boss would come to me and be like, hey, you're missing this, you're forgetting this, explain to me, you're an important part of this, because we need everything set up the right way. We need everything laid out the way we need it laid out, while we're all working on other stuff. So we need to be able to count on you to get this done. So after that, I was able to, figure out a system, take a notepad, go through everybody's card, everything that was different off of the regular card, write it down. Okay, I need one of these for this person. I need one of these for that person. I need one of these for player C. I need one of these for player D, so just trying to, I'm big on, you shouldn't have to tell me something more than once in order for me to get it corrected. And there, I think I had to be told maybe twice to get it corrected. So after that, it was just find your system, what works for you, even if it means you have to stay here later at night, get it done. Whatever it takes to get it done, find the way to get it done.
And was it easier when you went to the Lions for your second team? Did you feel like you understood the standards of the NFL better, or was it challenging in a different way?
It was still challenging in a different way. Going from an intern to full time, you get a little more onus of things. You're starting to run your own groups, and you're starting to take charge of command of other things. It wasn't as hard from a setup and breakdown standpoint. We didn't have any interns. It was only 3 of us there, so we all did everything together. But my boss there kept it simple. It's a completely different training philosophy and training style. Shout out to Coach Harold Nash, giving me my first full-time opportunity in the NFL. He is now the head strength and conditioning coach for the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, it still came with its own set of challenges, just trying to figure those things out and understanding how to operate as a professional at the professional level. It's NFL for all intents and purposes is still basically corporate America, so you got to learn how to operate in that setting like that. It's a little more laxed from everything I've noticed in college than it is at the NFL level. So you just trying to grow through that and figure that out. And it took a little bit, but I'm in a much better place now than I was then, from a understanding how to maneuver and how to act and how to, talk to people. Again, I think I was 27 at the time. I'm 32 now. So, you grow through your experiences and, you mature and you learn things like that. But having gone through that, it put me in a much better place now to understand how to interact with people younger than you, older than you, and all of that.
Who in your eyes was a pro's pro at either of those two teams, and why?
That is a good question. Who was a pro's pro? I would say Stafford, actually. So Matthew Stafford was the quarterback of the Detroit Lions when I was there. I think most people know that watch NFL football. He was a long-time quarterback for the Detroit Lions. He would come in. He had some family stuff going on, and they told him don't come in, during the offseason. He would come in every day before the sun came up, do all his workouts, handle his business, and then he'd be gone before the sun rose to go back home and handle his business. Everybody respected him, looked to him for guidance and for leadership. And, he was there to give that. He took care of his body. He did all the extra stuff. He, would command the team when need be. He was a true leader, and it was awesome to see stuff like that.
And from a coaching standpoint, was there a particular coach that you remember most fondly between those teams?
So if I could, so I did another internship with the Buffalo Bills in 2020. And if I can branch into that team, the defensive line coach, Eric Washington, he stood out. He was a pro's pro. The way he commanded those guys, the way he dealt with those guys, the way he had a no-nonsense attitude, but could also laugh and joke when needed. I thought that was impressive. I learned a lot from him and his temperament, his communication style, the way he taught. He's phenomenal at his job, and it was awesome to watch him work. So he's the one that sticks out to me the most, and somebody that I've built a really, really good relationship with, and somebody that I keep in contact with to this day. There's a bunch out there. There's Coach Adam Henry. He was with the Giants when I was there. I think he's actually at the Bills now. He did a phenomenal job. The way he communicated with his athletes and the way he was able to get the most out of those guys. And that receiver room had a lot of star power in it. And, as some of these players start to make more money, some of these coaches feel like they shouldn't talk to him a certain type of way, but he was still getting after guys and making sure that guys were doing what they needed to do. Coach Linda Wells, who was the assistant O-line coach when we were at the Giants, did a phenomenal job as well. Those three guys are some of the best at what they do, and that's why they've been at that level for so long.
Is there any piece of advice that sticks out in your mind that any of them gave you that you still carry with you today?
Absolutely. Be the best assistant that you can be when you're at an assistant level. Be the best intern that you can be when you're at the intern level. Just continue to grind, and people will start to notice. You don't have to go out of your way to try. Not that I was doing that, but you don't have to go out of your way to try and make yourself noticed. Your work will speak for itself, and also, no news is good news. Don't feel like people are going to come to you and tell you that you're doing a good job. As long as people aren't coming to you and telling you that you're doing a bad job, then that means everything is fine. because you're supposed to do a good job. That's the expectation. So we're not going to come to you and congratulate you on doing what you're supposed to do.
And so, after your stint in the pros, what made you want to go back to college ball?
Getting fired. Um, that's just
About that.
so. I mean, they say there's two types of coaches in the industry, right? Coaches that have been fired, and coaches that are going to be fired. So you rather get it out of the way early, I guess, if it's going to happen. So that way, when it happens later in your career, you know how to deal with it, you know how to understand it, and you know how to move from there to try and get your next job. And I mean, it's tough. I got fired in Detroit. So after I got fired in Detroit, I took an internship at Buffalo because it would help me get a third year in the league and keep my foot in the door. But, after that, I knew that was going to be short term. After that, I ended up at LSU because I couldn't find anything in the league. But I've grown a lot coming back to college. I've sharpened my skill set and added a couple more things to the repertoire that I might not have gotten had I stayed in the NFL, and that will hopefully, if God wants it to be that way, and if things work themselves out, I can go back to the NFL with these newfound skills that should help.
Was being let go a surprise to you from the Lions?
Yeah, it was a big surprise. I didn't see it coming. But again, I'll never forget. It was New Year's Eve day that it happened. It was December 31st of 2019, right before 2020, and we all remember how 2020 went. But it was a big shock. Walked into the office and was like, "Oh, okay, all right then." I thanked them for the opportunity, and I asked them what I needed to work on in order to get better. And we just went from there. I left there and tried to pursue other opportunities. You can't dwell on it too much because you have to find another job, especially if you have, a spouse and a family. You got to find another source of income in order to feed your family. So, that has to turn to your focus. You can sit back and think on it maybe after you're employed again, but until then, the goal is to find another job. So, and we got fired at LSU. The entire building got fired in 2021. So we kind of knew it was coming at the end of the season. So it allowed us to prepare a little more. But once you get fired, it's like, okay, focus shifts. I have to find a new job. I have to, go into my resources and see if there's anybody who is willing to hire me, or, see what else is out there that I can do in order to bring in some income so I can eat and the people that depend on me can eat.
And as you mentioned, sometimes coaching, right? It's a business, right? Were you given some really constructive feedback for how to improve? When you were let go, or was it just like, hey, we're letting go of this whole coaching staff, and it's not really personal to you?
So yeah, I was basically given no real feedback. LSU was just like, hey, thanks for your time. See you later. Which I get. Again, it's the business. No hard feelings, no ill will. You want people in the building that and that you trust, and preferably that you have worked with before. So I totally understand. And the same thing with the Lions. They were like, look, we're just evaluating this position. They had created that position for me, and they were like, we're not sure if we're going to keep this position or not, and we wanted to give you a chance to get another job, as opposed to us deciding in April that we don't want to keep this position, and now you can't find a job. So I appreciate them letting me do that. And there was a little bit of constructive criticism there, just on things that you can do to command a room better, or little stuff here and there. But for the most part, it was just like, hey, thanks for your time, we got to go in a different direction, see you later.
I mean, if you weren't coaching, tell us what else you're passionate about, or what we may find you doing?
Absolutely. So I've always said that if I weren't coaching, I'd try to be a chef somewhere. I like to eat, so I might as well learn how to cook so I could feed myself and, feed other people, right? Food for me and food for my wife. It's a love language for us. We're both foodies. We both like to eat. Always been interested in kinese and biomechanics and anatomy. So a massage therapist is probably something else that I would be doing. And maybe I'm a big boxing fan, so maybe training boxers and training fighters and learning how that works, learning how to take this skill set that I've had and that I'm grown to acquire, and using that to train different a different population, if you will.
Tell me more about why you love that sport.
I mean, so just I'm from Philly. Philly is a boxing culture. Just growing up with my dad, he used to watch fights on the TV, and I can remember my first boxing match. That was a core memory of mine. Was Costa Zoo knocking out Zab Judah, and Zab Judah getting up and essentially doing what we know now as the stanky leg, and then falling back down, and then stopping the fight. And just ever since then, growing up, and I remember having in high school having people over for different fights, and when Mayweather fought De La Hoya, having a bunch of people over, and it kind of stopped while I was in college and a little bit after college. But once we got to UCF, I found my passion for it again because I started boxing myself and started watching again. And it's just been a passion of mine. I grew up watching it, and starting to get into MMA and watching that a little more now. But it's boxing for me all the way, and it's just because of where I'm from, just because of where I grew up, and the way that my dad used to have me watching fights with him. I loved it.
Yeah, I'd say it sounds like boxing was not only about the sport, right, and the actual fight that you loved watching, but sort of that coming togetherness, right, with friends and your dad. Those were pretty special times. Um, what else do you remember about your dad, and just some of the great moments?
Oh yeah, no, my dad's the reason I got into got to Howard University to play football. He was always out there with me, whether it was I'm trying to. I was in elementary school. I was a kicker, so he was in the back, like, let's go work on your kicks, or as I'm growing up and I'm starting to play more defensive line. He's like, you need to work on your hands, try a spin move, try, a chop, try a swipe, different things like that. He's always supported me. He's always been there for me. And he's always been somebody that could give good advice, whether I knew it or not. I remember one time, I forget what I got in trouble for, something stupid for being a kid, right? And he was like, you need to think about it this way. You're supposed to end up doing better than your parents. You're supposed to end up doing better than us. How are you going to do that doing what you're doing now? And I was like, you know what? That is a great piece of advice. And I mean, I've got a really smart and strong-willed and powerful mother as well. And she was also an integral figure in my life. So I would be remiss if I did not mention her as well. But yeah, when it came to the sports and, my dad sending out letters and, using my email address while he's at work to email college coaches all day and all night and being like, hey, I got an email back from this guy. They want the tape, that we want to go on an official visit. He goes with me on all my official visits and all of that good stuff. I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be the man that I am without him.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. Um, to other kids out there, right, who have dads involved in sports, it seems like sports are getting started at a younger age. What would you share as a piece of advice, right, to the parents out there, who want to play an active role in their child's development and interest, but now through the lens of a coach, to not overdo it, right, as a parent? Well, what piece of advice would you share?
Absolutely. So the two big things for me, if you're a parent that is trying to, be involved in your child's sporting career, number one, you have to let them fail. you have to let them fail, right? Just like you want them to be able to fail so they can figure things out in life. Okay, that didn't work. Back to the drawing board. What else can I do? You can't be there to save them all the time, because sports, as again with these cliches, sports is a microcosm of life. You know, you'll learn a lot of your life lessons through playing sports. So you got to let them fail, and you got to be able to let them figure things out on their own. You got to, stay with them and make sure that they practice and do what they're supposed to do. Just because things get hard doesn't mean they should stop. Like, I remember when I was younger, going into the 6th grade, football got hard, right? And I told my mom I didn't want to do it anymore. And I think it was more about the fact that she paid the money, but she was like, "No, you're not quitting. You're crazy." Like, it was a quick conversation. "Mom, can I stop playing football?" "No." Okay. And I went back to do what I was doing. So being supportive like that, whether they know it or not, just pushing them, giving them the nudge to be great, letting them fail. And then number two, at a youth age, you have to let them play different sports. You have to let them develop the different general movement qualities and abilities that'll transfer from one sport to another, but they might not get it. They might not get put in this position super often playing football, but they'll get into it playing basketball, but they might end up in it once or twice in football. So now they know what it feels like, so they know how to get in and out of that position. You want to be able to expose them to as many general qualities as you can when they're younger, so that way when they're older, they've been exposed to an array of different movement styles and movement patterns and things of that nature. So I would say let your kids fail and do not specialize. That might be the first one. Do not specialize. Make them play different sports. If they're going to play basketball and they've got some talent in basketball or football or soccer, what have you, whatever season that's in, have them do something else in a different season, but put them in 2, 3 different sports and let them figure things out, because all of that will transfer into these other sports. All those skills you learn as a youngster will transfer to these other sports, especially as you get older.
And I love your perspective here. In the day and age that we live in, right? Like Instagram and everybody comparing themselves to everybody else, right? And the rise of club teams. How would you balance, like, if your kid's like, "Hey, all my friends are on club, soccer is my sport, mom, dad," what conversation would you have with him, to sort of pull back the reins and say, "Hey, you know, broad exposure is still pretty good here."
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I would say is, well, club season is going to end on whatever day it ends. So then everybody else is going to have to find different things to do anyway. So maybe some of your friends will go play different sports, and, you'll make other friends playing these sports on these other teams. And also probably explain to them, they may not get it, but try to explain to them, being uncomfortable and trying a different sport, that's going to help you grow. And you won't know that you don't like something until you try it. So you have to at least try it. If you try it and you don't like it, once the season's done, fine, we can move on to something else, but you at least need to try it, right? With my kids, it does, like, hopefully they love sports. Hopefully they're athletes. My wife is also a coach. So, that's the route we want to go. But, whatever it is, find something that you love, find something that you're passionate about, and do your best to be the best at it. Whether it's chess or singing or theater, whatever it is, we're going to push you to be the best that you can be at it.
Yeah, and I'm a little curious now. When you had your interest in boxing, you said that you actually picked up the sport, right? To go give it a shot. What do you remember about those early days of picking up a new sport? Given that you were primarily football based.
Like with boxing, the biggest thing I remember, getting punched a lot because I didn't have the defense that I have now. Learning how to get out of the way of those punches. It's one thing when you're hitting a heavy bag, or you're hitting some pads, and it looks good then, and it's all smooth then. But it's a whole different thing when you're trying to throw punches and somebody else is trying to throw punches at you too. You have to be on offense and defense at the same time. You have to just keep coming back, right? No matter how bad it is, no matter how miserable it gets, if you really want to get better at it, you're going to have those dark days where it's like, man, I feel like I may never pick this up. I may never get better at this. but it's the discipline over the motivation, right? Your discipline is being able to show up day in and day out and use those habits that you've created in order to continue working to that end result that you're looking for. Whereas your motivation, you may feel it one day and you may not feel it another day. Just like eating healthy, you may want to eat healthy one day and then the next day you want to eat some stuff that's not so good for you. But if you understand what the goal is and you've been conditioning your mind to eat healthy, then you just show up and you continue to do it regardless of how you feel because you know it's going to get you where you want to be. And I think that ultimately is what makes the great ones great.
You know,
Not to say I'm a
and
great boxer. Sorry.
certainly, and boxing is a violent sport, but what do you think is one of the misunderstood aspects of that sport? As you not only liked watching it, but also you've been in it.
The level of focus that it takes to to be a formidable opponent. You're on offense, you're on defense at the same time. It's just you in there, you've got a whole lot of eyes on you. And they say you don't realize how long a minute actually is until you start boxing. And that is 100% the truth because you will get tired really, really quickly, especially with with the anxiety rising because you're about to get punched in the face. I actually saw something from Conor McGregor. He put out a special on Netflix and he was like, that feeling that you get, those butterflies in your stomach, he was like, I need to feel that so that way I can get comfortable in those feelings. It may not ever go away, but I need to be able to get comfortable having those feelings and being able to maneuver in those feelings. And that's something that, this was only a couple of weeks ago, but I'm starting to take with me now. Like just because your anxiety and your nerves rise a little bit, that's fine because that means you care, but you also, if that's going to happen all the time, you need to learn how to deal with that, right? And control your feelings and be able to not necessarily suppress them, but be able to, maneuver in those feelings like we just talked about. Like, okay, yeah, I'm nervous, but we're going to continue to move through this and we're going to continue to work through this. And oftentimes that can take away from your focus. So being able to work through those feelings to help you stay focused through that entire 3-minute round and then doing that over and over again, because you might throw a combo and then you come back and your hand drops, right? And bow, you get punched in your face because you didn't have this hand up protecting your face. So just little things like that. It's just like a reminder, like you throw a combo, this hand comes down, bow, oh, yep, supposed to bring that hand up. That hand's going to come right back up then. So just when you get tired, when you're fatigued, understanding the level of focus that it takes to, continue those habits and that discipline because the professional fighters make it look easy. They make it look real, real, real easy, but it's not that easy.
I want to relate this back to you as a coach now. Share with us a moment where you had anxiety, where your nerves were really on edge, and how would you rein in your emotions in that moment?
From a boxing perspective or just
No, from like a coaching. Yeah,
Sure. My first day commanding a group at the Lions, they were like, hey, go outside. The way we split it up, we would have the offense doing one thing during OTAs or during phase one and the defense doing another. And then we would just flip flop. One group would be on the field, one group would be in the weight room, and then we would just flip flop. So they were like, you got to go outside with whichever group it was, and you got to run the group. So now I'm like, okay, now I've got all these professional guys looking at me, you know what I mean? And all the coaches are looking at me too. And really, you just got to fake it. And I tell my guys that when it comes to leadership and stuff like that too, you just got to fake it. Eventually, people aren't going to notice. I went out there and I faked it like I wasn't nervous. Like, I've been doing this my entire life and I'm used to commanding, people that are older than me and younger than me and making 33 times my salary. So you just work through it. And eventually, like we talked about before, that anxiety and those feelings, they'll leave because you've gotten so comfortable doing what you're doing. You put in the work and you put in the time and you're able to just rely on your preparation more than anything else.
Cool. You mentioned that your wife was also a coach. What do you admire most about her coaching style?
There's so many different things that I admire about her coaching style. She's able to work with the smallest and the youngest of children up to the highest and the most elite level, and her patience is incredible. My patience is extremely thin, and she's able to just, take things and shrug them off. Whereas I'm out here, I'm like, man, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. And I dwell on things for, longer than she does at least. So, just her patience and her ability to just work on things and just move to the next thing if something didn't go right and just shrug it off.
And tell me more about what she coaches.
She's a softball coach. She is an elite level softball coach. She can work, like I said, with the youngest of the young to, the professionals and the kids in the SEC. She played softball. She's a winner. She's got four conference championship rings at the Division I level. She was just coaching at West Alabama. She had the conference pitcher of the year. She had pitcher or I guess through the bullpen, she had 4 perfect games and 2 no-hitters. So she's really able to take her pitchers and develop them into, probably more than they thought they could be. So she is phenomenal at her job.
And is that a blessing to have two coaches in one household? Or do you keep it sort of separate, or do you guys sort of pick each other's brains for tips?
No, I mean, we definitely pick each other's brains for tips. One of the things that she's able to do is, in the middle of something not working, she's like, okay, I can take this, I can make a drill out of this right now, immediately. Like, okay, that's not working. Let's try this to regress that and progress that. So, just being able to learn that from her and see how she interacts. And yeah, we always bring stuff like, oh man, trying to explain this to this kid, he's not getting it. Well, what about this? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And just being able to talk through things, whether it's from the coaching standpoint or the administrative standpoint. And then given the nature of, what I do and how finicky football can be, one year you're there or one day you're there and the next day you're gone. Having somebody who understands that and understands the business and understands how these things go and understands that, we're not going to be somewhere for 10 to 15 years. More than likely, we're probably going to have to move here in the next 3 to 5 years. And, that can weigh on some people, especially people who aren't coaching and who didn't grow up around athletics. So it definitely makes that easier too.
Yeah, last question I have for you is, what's been one of the highlights thus far for your career, and who'd you share it with?
That's a great question. The highlights of my career have just been I've been blessed to work at different places in the SEC and the NFL and, the ACC. And I'd say that is validation that I am at least good at my job, and you become numb to these things, right? Like, yeah, I'm in these sold out stadiums every week and I'm in this top of the line weight room every day. So you just become numb to it. So being able to share those experiences with your wife and with your parents and, people who only see these things from the outside. Like when I was in Detroit, my mom's whole side of the family lives in Detroit, and they had like a family and friends day one time. And I was able to bring my entire family to the Lions facility, and they got to walk around and meet the players. And, people get starstruck and can't believe it. And, it's just another day for you. But that sharing those experiences with those people is what keeps everything in perspective for me, to let me know you still are doing a really, really cool job. Yes, it's a really, it takes a grind, and you're probably working harder than a lot of people out there. But at the same time, this is your reward, and don't ever forget that. Don't ever lose sight of that, because there are other people out there who would love to be doing what you're doing and who see what you're doing as a true blessing. So you need to make sure that you see that as well.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Story Behind the Glory. Stay up to date with On3 for our latest episodes by following On3 on social media at On3 Stories.